Hello and welcome back. My name's Daniel Manners and I'm running a series of webinars on adaptive manufacturing. Now, today I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be taking a 1,000-foot view. There is a lot going on globally at the moment, so I'm going to get a little bit political because it has huge implications for manufacturing. So really, I'm going to be saving the world from itself and talking about sustainable manufacturing. Okay, so this is one of the cornerstones of adaptive manufacturing, which I've talked about in my previous series of webinars. It never leaves. Every topic has everything to do with sustainability. Now, sustainability isn't always about materials, recycling, things like that. Okay, it's sustainable practices. So we've suffered from naive politics and policies for many years, okay? Globalisation was started, I don't know, 50 years ago, something like that, and it's grown, but it's gotten out of hand. It's not sustainable. Now, what I'm showing here is my normal mind map. I've only just edited it a little bit because I wanted to show you where we are. I'm sure some of you out there will know some of this with regards to figures of manufacturing. So this is going to be a shorter one. So here, if I zoom in and scroll over a little bit, you can see China at the top. Everybody knows that. And a lot of that's been done because of the workforce, but people forget that China subsidizes heavily its manufacturing. Okay, so it's not an even playing field. It's not sustainable. And America applying tariffs on everyone and everything isn't going to change anything. All right, it's going to make life very hard for the Americans. I feel sorry for them. I don't know how anyone thinks that's going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is because we've had 50 years of globalization to try and unwind. And people say globalization is dead. It's not dead. It's just going to adapt. All right. So applying tariffs on all the materials across all the countries is nothing going to, is causing confusion. It's going to create inflation. It's not the secret pill. It's the secret pill is policy, sustainability, and working together. All right, we need to work together. Now, in the UK, for example, for many years, it decided by itself, the government decided that it was a services country, all right, and didn't really care about manufacturing. Now, what do we see? We see the UK says bringing back modern industrial strategy, okay? Advanced manufacturing, clean energy industries, blah, blah, blah. But what they don't realise, the policymakers don't realise, this is really why I'm doing this webinar in particular as a 1,000-foot view, is because policies need to be longer term, right? Sustainable manufacturing, adaptive manufacturing, which is thinking much longer term. I've said this over and over again, okay? Short-termism is going to destroy us, all right? We need to be thinking longer term and we need to be thinking sustainably, okay? Now, manufacturers across the world already can't get enough staff, all right? People think AI is going to kill all the jobs, nobody will have anything to do. That is absolutely not true. Even in a fab, even in a chip fab, there's thousands of workers needed, even though the chip fab and indeed the automotive industry is one of the highest adopters of automation. All right, they automate as much as they can, but still they can't find the people to do it. So what we really need, what we're talking about is onshoring, okay? So Europe, America, Asia, parts of Asia, not just China, there's a strong case for onshoring, right? It's about sustainable supply chains, okay? It's about honesty, it's about the distribution of wealth, okay? Now, in America and in Europe, I'm not saying America alone, but all around the world, there's a massive misdistribution of wealth, all right? And even if I had a magic wand and overnight automation across the world was transformed, we would still have a problem. It's not going to happen overnight. So what we're really talking about is onshoring, but in a balanced way. Okay, Europe needs to onshore more in certain areas of manufacturing. America needs to onshore in certain areas of manufacturing, and we need to have a sustainable and reliable supply chain. So any country that has a stable government, a democratic, stable environment where it's investing in its country, in its people, in its manufacturing, in its services, can be part of the supply chain, right? Manufacturing is too complicated these days. It's not easy making things. Right? Even the most simple manufacturing processes take a lot of skills to make sure that those products are made in a consistent, reliable way so that the consumer wants to buy more, etc., etc. We're not going to overnight, magic manufacturing or rebalance the whole supply chains. Like I said, it's 50 years in the making, and resources aren't evenly distributed around the world. Okay, the skills spectrum, which is my last talk was about, aren't evenly distributed around the world. Every manufacturer I know is struggling to get all sorts of skills, especially at the higher level, engineering, management, leadership level, okay, but also down at the operator level. They can't get them. So AI has a place, right? Certainly with quality checking and being able to do new processes and things like that, but we're a long way off, right? The dark factory, as they call it, where no one's needed. This is a fallacy, it's a dream, all right? So really, we, as I said before, we need to be collectively smarter, not collectively stupid. So the main aim of my series of webinars is to join the dots of what's required to improve manufacturing. And this is no small task. And when you look at the figures here in monetary terms, now this is really the tip of the iceberg because, again, as I said, I think in my second webinar, the definitions of manufacturing is a bit blurred. Okay, so you can see here in the top left some of the industries, if you like, but if you're ignoring process and mining, which you shouldn't, because that's they call that primary, but to me there's a lot of automation in those areas and in agriculture in order to maintain the supply chains as they are. All right, so we don't need tariffs. All right, we probably need tariffs when a country's heavily subsidizing the manufacturing environments, because that's not an even playing field. All right, but where there is an even playing field, the tariff should be almost non-existent. Now, I don't know enough. I'm not an economist. I don't know enough about the ins and outs of the tariffs, but I'm standing at 1,000 foot here, and I think we're on the verge of a bit of a collapse. So if I if I roll myself back a bit, all right, the implications for investment in manufacturing, it's longer term. This is the bottom line. It needs to be sustainable and it's longer term. It shouldn't be isolationist. It should be a cooperative, right? There should be policies in place which enable longer term thinking, and politics is a part of this, right? Politics is so cyclic, right? It's so short term. It's 3, 4, 5 years. This isn't good enough. This isn't going to help humanity better itself, right? And the cornerstone of adaptive manufacturing is basically longer term thinking on the finance, right? If you have longer term thinking on the finance and your engineering thinking is allowed to be longer term, in the medium long term, you will be much more efficient, much more sustainable, and much more prosperous. But if you're just building things to make things for 3 to 5 years and then have to sell off half your assets because the political situation changes or the global system changes, you are in big trouble. And this is the problem now. 50 years of globalisation, we can't just turn it on. You're not going to turn it off with a switch. It's still there. It's always going to be there. You take Taiwan. It's the powerhouse of chip fabrication, manufacturing. It has incredible knowledge and produces an incredible volume of silicon for the world, and that is brilliant. But it can't be the one egg in the one box, right? It can't be. And they, of course, push back a little bit on building fabs in the US, and maybe even Europe is having the same problem. But they've got to think longer term, right? So yes, it's been that bit of silicon shield from a geopolitical situation where they will be protected by the West from China, should China ever choose to invade them, because they manufacture 80% or whatever it is of the higher end chips for the global market. Well, that's worked to a point, but longer term, it's not sustainable at all. And I would argue that in the coming years, they won't have the capacity to supply the world with advanced silicon chip production anyway. So it's going to need other manufacturing plants. This is where the longer term thinking comes in, because these fabs take 5, maybe even 8, 10 years to build, and they employ 2, 3, 4, maybe even 6,000 people. And so if you haven't got the people to fill those positions within the company in Europe, in the US, or in other Asian companies, South America, then you're in big trouble. So to conclude a bit of my mild rant, I'm just going to circle back to adaptive manufacturing, okay, and why this ties in with my geopolitical rant. We can't separate these topics. Like I've said again and again in my webinars, all the dots are joined up, and a lot of the information out there is isolated or tries to promote itself, etc., in an isolated way. And so my aim is to join all the dots that existing and up and coming manufacturers want to manufacture in a new way, all right, and in an adaptive way, okay. And the cornerstones of this are, which you can see here, adaptive manufacturing, digital transformation, digital twin, which is an important part of all those, and sustainability, okay. But on top of the sustainability, or even part of the sustainability, is thinking longer term. We have to think longer term, and we have to work together in a different way, okay. We have to work more proactively together, all right. We have to select our supply chains with care and not leave ourselves wide open. All right, so this is the message, my interim message from a very high level view. My next topics will be going into a bit more detail on adaptive manufacturing. I hope you found this interesting, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.